All right, welcome back. So this is what we're calling the Capacity Interactive 2-Hour Power Hour, also known as Lessons to Help You Become a Stronger Digital Marketer. What we wanted to do was really take all of as much as the things we've learned over the last year, and within these 2 hours, share them with you. So different members of my team are going to come up for different amounts of time to share best practices, case studies, and what I wanted to start with is 3 big things that I've been thinking about over the past year. This was actually, we did headshots for our website, and my friend was a photographer, and he mocked us up the next day and sent it to me, so found a use for it. So the 3 big ideas that I want to talk about are, 1, I think arts organizations are, and this is a generalization, this is not everybody, but for the most part, are under-investing in digital. Number 2, I want to talk about moving to a more iterative website redesign process rather than spending so much time, effort, and money on these big website redesigns and then, ostensibly ignoring your site for a number of years. And number 3, I think arts organizations need to really think about themselves as media companies. So, the first point. Most arts organizations are not investing enough in digital media or infrastructure. So when I first moved to New York 14 years ago, this is what the subway looked like. And I remember getting my New York Times, and I would bring pieces of it, and I would fold it, and I would look at different pages, or I would bring a book. But now this is what the subway website. This is now what the subway looks like. And as I said yesterday, from that app moment, I look at my phone between 100 and 200 times a day. And actually, I looked up the average. On average, people look at their phones between 80 to 180 times a day. So this is not an unlikely sight in the New York City subway. And it really is across all cultures and all age ranges. We are addicted to our phones. We've heard this come up a lot in the conference, but even when people are watching traditional media, they're actually looking at their devices. So more than half of people report that they're on their second screen, even when they're watching traditional media. And people aren't watching your billboards or looking at your billboards because they're texting while they're driving, right? It's scary the amount of people, even when you look on the highway and you see people on their phones, it's staggering how many people are on their phones. The point of all this is, and I said this a lot at the beginning yesterday, consumer habits have dramatically changed, and I think we have not. When you look at time spent with Medium, on the top is devices, the green line is TV, and then radio and print. You're seeing that steady decline in all mediums except digital. And in 2012, there was that big crossover. And I just don't think, as arts organizations, our media allocation and our spending and our resource allocation have aligned with the reality. So here's a media plan that breaks out. It's about a third TV, a third print, and a third split between radio, outdoor, and digital. Now, I know not everyone does TV, but does this look like a similar media plan to what? To me, this looks like a really common arts organization's media plan. And the scary thing is that's actually numbers taken from 2008, which is US total ad spending by Medium in 2008. In 2013, digital was actually 27% of ad spending, and we're really advising organizations allocate a minimum of 25% of their digital budgets or their advertising budgets to digital. And then when you look into 2018, that number goes up to 37%. And you see all that growth is really coming at the expense of print. I get so many calls, probably a few a week, of people saying, my print advertising is just not working, and we don't know how to move that money to digital tools that work. We don't know how to storytell for social. We don't know how to buy advertising in a new way that's not buying direct placements. And we've really critically reached a point where things have changed, and the organizations that aren't changing and evolving are really starting to feel the pain of this. This is a really interesting study that Accenture put up. They interviewed 600 chief marketing officers, and they asked them about their feelings on the change in marketing over the next 5 years. And 78% of respondents agreed that marketing is expected to undergo radical changes over the next 5 years. The biggest takeaway from this was 37% of these CMOs agreed that digital will account for more than 75% of their marketing budget. That's a huge change. And the smart marketers are thinking 3 years ahead, 4 years ahead, 5 years ahead, right? So how are you going to get to that point? Certainly should not be spending 75% of your marketing budget on digital now, but you really need to make a plan in the next 5 years to start thinking that way. Actually, Pepsi is right now spending 75% of their money on digital. I mean, they speak to a very young demographic, but they have already made that leap. So we know from our benchmark study that 66% of arts organizations spend under 20% of their ad budget on digital, and 42% are spending less than 15%. Now contrast that to this. That's a humongous disconnect. We know from a study that Google did, and actually at the end of the day today, Jason from Google is going to come up here and present this awesome study where Google commissioned Ipsos Media to survey 3,000 cultural ticket buyers. And this is not sports, this is not concerts, this is actually the things that everyone in this room sells. And they interview people from ages 18 to 64, and they ask them about their habits of how they're researching and their process to buying live event tickets. It's a really fascinating study. But one of the takeaways was 64% of people turn to the internet for arts information, and 75% of people are going there first, and 37% are using the internet during their information gathering process. So again, smart marketers go where the eyes and ears are. We also know, and I presented this yesterday, that 49% of tickets are sold online for arts organizations, and that's up from 46% in 2012, and that's only going to increase. And 54% of arts organizations say they do not have adequate budget to cover their web maintenance needs. Again, this is just a staggering statistic, and just supporting the point that we know that this is important, we know this is where people are getting their information, we know this is where the eyes and ears are, but we're not funding it. So going back to this, what we looked at yesterday, and we said all of these items are really related. If you can help determine the ROI, get the people knowledgeable enough, which is why you guys are here, and develop clear digital strategies, you can get that leadership support. And I don't think that the budget's not there, I just don't think it's being allocated correctly. It goes back to like what Joseph Jaffe was saying, investing in your assets instead of buying this throwaway media. So I repeated a lot of these stats from yesterday, and so I thought about what can you do? How do you know, we know this is a problem, right? And we know there's a lot of limitations, and every organization probably has its own set of limitations. And I'm certainly not going to solve that for you in the 30 minutes that I'm going to be up here talking. But some things that we've learned for organizations that are trying to really grow into digital and become a more digital-first organization is we say start small. Do a case study. Set up conversion tracking where you're measuring something and get some good results. And it doesn't have to be a big investment. It could be a Facebook campaign. It can be a search campaign. It can be a banner campaign. But really invest in setting up the measurement. And take that small case study and socialize that throughout your organization. Go to your leadership. And we've seen it time and time again when organizations do that. They start small and they grow, and they really become an organization that embraces digital and is thinking about digital first. Involve the leadership in your organization. When you're seeing studies, I would love for more executive directors and managing directors to come to this conference, because I think a lot of these are big questions, and we're really at this incredibly important time of change. So the more information you can share with your leadership, the more studies you can show them, the more takeaways from this conference you even bring to them. The smart leaders often know that digital is important, they just don't know how to do it, and they should, ideally trust you. And the way you do that is to share data. Same idea of starting with a small case study, but share that graph of where, when you're having these arguments and people are saying, well, our people aren't on digital, take the numbers and say, well, actually they are, and share some of those graphs. It's hard to argue with numbers. And this is super important. Get the right people on the bus. every business book I read, almost every business book I read, the takeaway of what makes an organization successful is the makeup of its people. I just read Eric Schmidt's book, How Google Works. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. And he says that the number one most important thing that he tells his leadership team to do, the most important thing any executive, the most important skill any executive can learn is how to interview. Because it's all about who you're bringing in your team. And investing in a culture of learning. I feel like the arts does not invest enough in people and in job training. And I think it's so great that all of you are here, so in some ways I may be preaching to the choir, but the more information you can absorb, because this stuff is changing so quickly. So really investing in the people who are in leadership roles, continuing to invest in a culture of learning. So the second thing I want to talk about, I'm calling evolution, not revolution, and this is the idea of iterative web development. So we know from our study that more than half of arts organizations redesigned their website in the past 3 years. And I said this earlier, website redesigns are just, who's been through one, right? They're just super resource intensive. You're doing your job, and then you have these series of meetings, and you have to make tons of decisions, and they're really expensive. You have to go often through a capital campaign and get the board involved. And for some of our bigger clients, these are $500,000 to $1 million projects. For some smaller organizations, maybe they're a couple $100,000, or they're big resource-intensive projects, right? And I just don't think that's the best allocation of time, because as arts marketers, you just have so much to do, and you're being pulled into these projects. So this is a really familiar idea to most of you. But so we look at this graph, and on the left is conversion, right, or something like measure of success, or in the bottom is over time. So you have this website that was built in 2008, and over time, you're just not investing it, right? You're not investing in it. The homepage doesn't truly or accurately represent your organization. The navigation's kind of a mess. It's kind of embarrassing. Like, everyone has a little bit of shame about how bad your website is. And so you get together all this money and you decide, we're going to do a redesign. And so all these resources go into it. A year and a half passes, and boom, you launch your site, and all of a sudden, hey, things are going great. Our conversion rates are up. People are happy. People can feel good about it. So we can just forget about this for another few years, and this cycle continues, right? So it's this idea of buying a car and not, putting gas in it, or getting the oil changed, or getting it tuned up. What we're recommending instead is to move to a more iterative web design process, where you're using data to figure out what's going well with your site and what's not, and making incremental changes over time. So instead of spending $500,000 every 5 years, if that is indeed your budget, you're spending maybe $100,000 a year and using data. And so when things change, when Facebook launches a new feature, or you want to build something new, it's not you're waiting 5 years to play catch up on this infrastructure that's totally fallen behind, but you're really staying present with web trends. Does that make sense? No. Karen showed an Amazon earlier. I want to show an example from Amazon. The homepage of Amazon in 2014 versus the homepage of Amazon in 2012. And you see, Amazon never redesigns. Have you ever gone one day to Amazon like, oh my God, this looks totally different? No, they're constantly iterating. So you're really never going to the Amazon homepage. You're going to a Amazon homepage, because every time you're on their page, they're testing. Same with Google. Every time you do a Google search, it's an A/B test where they're testing something to see what's going to work better. So I just want to show some subtle differences here. This was the Kindle Fire in 2012, the call to action up there with a picture. They did a test, and they realized if they say starting at $99 and a call to action, they're probably making a lot more money, so they kept it there. If you look at, this said join Prime, now it says try Prime. Subtle little word difference, I bet makes them a lot of money. Here, the importance of logging in. So in 2012, there was a tiny sign into your account. Here, they've prioritized that. It's now bigger and more prominent, because Amazon needs to get you to sign in so they can understand a habit, so they can ship you things to shipping centers close to you in advance before you even know you want them. which they actually do. I'm not even making that up. Amazon has determined that there are 40,000 behavioral segments, and once they figure out what you've fallen into, they are now pre-shipping items they know you will want to warehouses closer to you. Search, the prioritization of search. You look at the difference in 2014, they realize it's obviously really important. So my point is, and this is a weird slide, it's breadcrumbs. Find a good breadcrumb image on Google, send it to me. I've A/B tested another one, it didn't look like breadcrumbs either. Anyway, this bowl represents breadcrumbs, and so my point is every time someone is coming to your website or interacting with you on social media or opening an email, they're leaving little clues of what's working and what's not. And if you set up the measurement correctly, you can use those clues to improve the experience. If you ever want to read a blog about analytics or you're into that, Avinash is the analytics evangelist at Google. And for like digital marketing geeks for me, he's a hero. But he says experimentation and testing help us figure out we are wrong quickly and repeatedly, right? So the idea of constantly testing and constantly iterating. So again, I'm repeating this, but 13% of arts organizations feel like they're using Google Analytics to its potential. So Yosef touched on this yesterday. I just wanted to show you, I think there is lots of confusion because analytics can do so much and have a dump of information that often is not actionable. And I think Yosef covered a lot of that yesterday. But I just wanted to show a couple more case studies and really hammer home the point that data must provide actionable insights to guide your decision. Looking at a dashboard that shows last week's performance versus this week's performance, that's great. But how is it actionable? I think there are dashboards that are useful to look at certain things, but analytics really works when you ask why or use it to understand your user behavior with the point of making change. So we worked with Roundabout, looking at the analytics on their site, and this is the Roundabout homepage. And I think Yosef touched on this yesterday, but about 30% of people come to the Roundabout site through their homepage and navigate through the homepage. But really, this is your homepage. This is almost everyone's homepage. The majority of traffic to most sites come from Google, either paid search or organic search. And most of them are just going straight to the production detail page. So if you're doing any sorts of analytics work, focus on that page and focus on what elements of that page drive people to convert. So with Roundabout, that's a very long page, right? You have the show description, you have the audio clips, you have video, you have the creative team, the cast, photo gallery. So Yosef actually did analysis of all of those things and found that that photo gallery down there, when someone clicks through those images, there's a 13% higher likelihood that they're going to convert and to buy a ticket. So that's really powerful information, right? You can actually then reprioritize that page and move that photo gallery up to the top of the page, and hopefully you're going to have more conversions. This is a project, similar project we did at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music. There's two ways for people to get to the production information. One is through this left nav, sorting by category, and the second way is through the calendar. So measuring that, we found that there was a 31% increase in conversions if people viewed the calendar. But the crazy thing was only 6% of people were navigating to the calendar because it was buried in the navigation. So if they can move that calendar to be reprioritized further up in the navigation, they will hopefully make a lot more money. Does that make sense, the idea of finding actionable items that can reinform your design? Great. So there's a tool called Optimizely that we've been using on the Capacity Interactive site, and this is so easy to use. You put the code on your site, and right in the interface, you can actually try different things. And so I tested start your free 7-day trial versus try it free for our Leadacity software. And very quickly, within a week, one version, I changed a few other things too, but this does all the testing, and very quickly I found that one version, the combination of headline and call to action, could increase conversions by 7%. That took me about an hour to set up. So this is the kind of test. In addition to analytics, you can be A/B testing with Optimizely and get a lot of really quick insights on your website. The third idea is you must become a media company. And before I go to that, the way I think about a media company is two things. One, say you're the New York Times, right? It's about generating content, generating good content. We've talked a lot about content here. We talked about City Ballet as a media company or using your own assets. So content around video, social content, blog posts, writing really well, focusing on that content. And then, like the New York Times, you have to get subscribers. You have to get people who are subscribing to your newsletter, following you on social, perhaps even coming to your website so you can remarket them. And it's so much about storytelling. And storytelling is fundamental to who we are as human beings. It's across all cultures, all times. And unfortunately, I think most organizations are still storytelling like it's the 50s, or maybe the 90s. But you need to storytell in a way that makes sense for where people are and how they're using media. And we've said this over and over, people are here. And the way you're crafting your stories, the length of your stories, how you're appearing on social media, the videos you're putting out there, that is now defining who you are as an organization. You have to really think about that. We're living in a time where people have more control over their time than ever before in human history. Time is the most valuable thing anybody has. And the marketers that don't understand that or don't respect that are not going to win. With the TiVo, people no longer are beholden to commercial interruptions. They're not beholden to radio interruptions through Spotify or Pandora or Songza, and they can always press the delete button, right? Who gets mad when their phone rings and someone's calling you? Right? I do. I'm like, what are you, you're calling my cell phone? I don't even know this number. But that is really because we are now in control of our time. We want to communicate in a way that is on our timetable. We want to be able to text or send an email. We don't need to answer your call because that's on your time, right? So even look at the businesses that are really successful right now. Like look at Uber. Why does Uber work? Because it's taken that process of hailing a cab and having to have a conversation with the cab driver and giving him the money. First of all, it takes extra time. Second of all, I'm not as in control of that. With Uber, I can just push a button. I don't have to exchange money. I'm in such a hurry. I don't want to swipe the credit card. I just want to get out of the car, right? Seamless Web is another one. I don't want to call the delivery place. I just want to click a button, show what I want, and the food just arrives. No money is exchanged hands. It's that idea that people have no time. And so as a marketer, it's, I think, one of the biggest lessons I hope you can take away today. This is something, if you see me speak, I talk about all the time, but I think it's worth repeating. The idea of traditional media is one of buying space. So I think the New York Times arts section is going to reach my audience, so I'm going to pay to place an ad there. I'm renting that audience, right? And it's very inefficient. Probably 98% of those people seeing my ad don't care at all about it. And it's so expensive because you're paying for those 98% of people that don't care about you. And the only one winning in that scenario is the New York Times, right? Because every time you want to reach your audience, you have to go back to the well. You have to keep giving them money. Seth Godin, who knows who Seth Godin is? Yeah, he keynoted our first boot camp. There were 50 people in the audience, and I called Seth and I emailed him, and I said, we're doing this arts conference. Can you come speak? And he told me his fee, and I was like, goodbye. And he was like, wait, just make me an offer. I love theater. And I was like, I will give you access to like 5 house seats, like 5 pairs of house seats if you speak at this conference. And he said, done. And he never took the house seats. I asked him so many times. Anyway, he wrote this great book. Maybe he wasn't that much of a theater lover. But it was an awesome presentation. And he wrote this book that is fundamental to how I think as a marketer. It was published in the late 90s. It's called Permission Marketing. And the subtext is turning strangers into friends, friends into customers, and customers into evangelists. And how does that play out in the media model? So you have to have content. You have to have great content. And again, that comes in the form of video, social content, email content. And then you use that content to get leads. to get people who care about you, to get them to come to your website and capture their email address, capture them on social media, retarget them. And then you send permission-based communication, which is where the storytelling comes in. So you're doing these really compelling social content to get people excited to care about you. Notice nowhere in here yet is a sale. That comes later. If you've done enough permission-based communication and given people what they want, when they want it, in an interesting way, eventually, hopefully, a lot of them are going to become buyers. And they're going to have an amazing experience, and they're going to tell their friends, right? That's content marketing, or some people call that inbound marketing. But Seth Godin coined it as permission marketing in the 90s, and I think it's such a great model for arts organizations. So to do this well, you really need to have a content creator on staff. If you are hiring anybody, if you're going to think about what your next hire is in a digital department, hire a storyteller. Someone who can tell the story of your organization, who is native to social media, who knows how to communicate through the ways that people are getting their media. And there are thousands of unemployed journalists, unfortunately, and that's not a bad place to start that search. I want to talk quickly about, I keep mentioning video and social. I want to show a few quick ideas. YouTube has more adults than most cable networks. It's very mobile, and if you're going to promote on YouTube, it has the targeting capabilities of Google, which are amazing. From that study that Jason will talk about later today that I mentioned earlier, these 3,000 live event buyers said that 45% of them said they think more favorably about a show after they've seen a video. So it's not only on YouTube, but on your website. And 68% said that good video influences a purchase, right? I mean, if I'm going to see a show, of course, the first thing I look at is I want to see the slideshow and I want to see the video. So just a quick case study. YouTube pre-roll with those Google targeting capabilities. So what Karen, I want to bring this up because the question that came up yesterday. Karen mentioned, they did that amazing 9/12 video and we retargeted all those people. So we had a pool of 1 million people who had seen that. We took that remarketing pool and then we put their season subscription, it was a season video in front of them. And we've done this for a lot of organizations, and this is just some results. Typically, I'll give you the numbers first. So on $4,000 media investment, we've seen $31,000 in ticket sales with a 600% ROI by doing that strategy, right? Great content to build a remarketing pool, put the sales message in front of them, and then eventually they will buy. And with YouTube, I'd say the ROI range for campaigns we're seeing is anywhere between 100% to like 800%. I mean, it's pretty remarkable if you have good video. And talking about good video, 68% of YouTube users say it is a place to celebrate creativity. You saw those videos that Karen shared yesterday. I just want to say we need to stop the talking head video. It's like the artistic director sitting in their office talking about how great the season is going to be. Don't bother. Does it inspire? Does it entertain? Does it educate? And if the answer is no, don't produce it. I said it yesterday, I'm saying it again. Cut a print ad and hire an amazing videographer. The content of your videos should be as compelling as the work you put on your stages. We're arts organizations. We're not selling insurance. We don't have to create a gecko, right, like Geico does. And so they essentially had to create that content because they know this. They created this fictional character. We have those stories. We have those assets. We need to create thumb stoppers. Greg said thumb stoppers yesterday. But, and thumb stoppers they're easier with dance, right? You can have an image like this. But Jazz at Lincoln Center doesn't have, dancers like that, but they've still found a way to invest in their photography, storytell, and have really great writing and have really thumb-stopping social media content. Here's a theater example. I think Book of Mormon does an amazing job with their storytelling, and they've been going on the same show for years now. How many times do you see these posts like us on or join us on Instagram? Well, here's a really creative way to do that, and I think they do such a good job. Last point, we talked about creating content. Now I just want to talk about the importance of lead generation. Most arts organizations, when you look at the analytics, less than 1%, less than 0.5%, even less than like 0.25% of people coming to a website are giving an email address. And it's usually because there's a tiny little button maybe on the bottom that will be like sign up, or a tiny little button on the top that'll say join us on email, without giving any sort of compelling reason. And so you see these conversion rates that are infinitesimal. So that's why we created the software, Leadacity. And with Leadacity on people's site, they get 1% to 2% of email addresses or social follows of people coming to their website. If you want to use Leadacity, that would be awesome. If you're not going to use Leadacity, find a way on your website to do a better job of collecting email addresses and social follows and make sure you're pixeling everybody. We did a case study that with one of the first clients that had Leadacity on their site. And this was like a prototype model. And for 6 months, we collected a few thousand email addresses. And after 6 months, we did an analysis of those email addresses we collected from the tool that looks like that. Those few thousand people bought over $50,000 in tickets, right? That is, those are the people that are your most likely buyers. If they're coming and they're signing up for an email address, you can now reach them over email. You can now reach them over social. You don't have to pay the New York Times to speak to those people. The Clinton, well, it's really started with Obama, but they are really amazing at lead generation, right? So I saw, where's Hillary? A happy birthday, sign her e-card. Hillary Clinton doesn't care if I sign her e-card, right? They just want my email address. And once they get my email address, they can send me all sorts of updates and ask me for money and begin a permission-based communication. Who reads the skim? Yeah, it's awesome, right? I saw this ad, saw this great post. It's really lots of white space, good quote. I go to their site. It's mobile friendly. It's Facebook friendly. One thing to test, look at the Facebook browser, how your site appears in the Facebook browser. Really important to test to make sure that looks good, because so much traffic is now coming from Facebook. I think Facebook, was it 200 times more traffic to a website than Twitter? Was the stat that I saw last week? Was it? 20. 200, whatever. Yeah, 20. Just a zero. Yeah, it was 20. Anyway, Facebook drives a lot of traffic to your website. Can drive a lot of traffic to your website, way more than Twitter. But then I started getting these, immediately I said, you just got skimmed. It was an email I got in my inbox, and sure enough, the next day I started getting my skim, and I almost opened it every day and read it. That took about 45 seconds, that whole process. So we say the cost of anything free should always be an email address. Not to pick on BAM, but they have this production where they announced this opera. This was over the summer, and it was in September. And you get to this page, and it's a dead page, right? There's nothing going. I guess I could hit the back button. What I'd love to see on that page is sign up for an email for an alert when this goes on sale, right? I know this is, we're just in this crazy time where everything's changing and organizations are going from analog to digital. So just want to put this little piece of inspiration up here and then show my dog, Sally. All right. She really does have 2 ears. She's just listening to something. All right. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Jana.
Thank you.
To the right.
Okay, thanks. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jana Gluth. I'm a consultant with Capacity Interactive. And just to give you a little bit of context about my background, before joining the Capacity team, I worked in-house in different arts organizations, both visual and performing. I worked in marketing roles, but also did time in the trenches of development, which I actually very much value. It was good years. So actually, what I'm about to talk about is something that's incredibly near and dear to my heart, and it's the idea of the digital organization, or getting everybody on the bus, as Eric phrased it. The things I'm going to cover really aren't revolutionary or new. In fact, you've heard about them during your time here so far. But what I'd like to do is try to contextualize it a little bit and look at it through the prism of your organization, the challenges you face, and talk about some ways you can actually take forward motion in creating this digital organization. So Many of us have worked in organizations that, to one degree or another, have the legacy of silos, of really looking at patrons in isolation in department to department, and coming up with the strategies and tactics of reaching out to those patrons in that same isolation. You know, we all know what it's like. We're busy, so marketing keeps their head down. They sell the tickets. They get more social followers. Development needs their donors, and they're dealing with their board members. Education sees their audience in classes or at student matinees. And it really kind of makes sense that things have evolved this way, or that most of us have experienced it, because when you look at your budget documents, income and expense lines are pretty much drawn in this way. But when we're in these silos, what we don't always understand or remember is that patrons on the outside, they just see us as one organization. They really don't care what department is sending them the letter or the email or the social post. And furthermore, with the exception of maybe the first contact you have with an organization, so say the first time you buy a ticket, or maybe you went with your friend to a gala, from that moment on, you're multidimensional. You have contact with a lot of different departments in an organization, be it single ticket emails, an annual fund appeal, a subscriber brochure, or maybe your kids sign up for a class, a theater class. And really, this kind of links back to a bigger idea that we've been talking about, the idea that in social media today, it's so important that we focus on depth as opposed to just breadth, because when I'm a multidimensional patron, what matters to me is that you speak to me where I am in my life cycle with your organization. Don't try to sell me a single ticket if I am a subscriber. I mean, for goodness sakes. And the nice thing is, in this day and age, there are tools to make this kind of easy for organizations. And you're going to hear a lot more about that in the next hour or so. But I just wanted to take this moment to make sure we all take the time to think about patrons and the life cycle and identifying what stage they're in. Because when we do that successfully and we communicate to them at that point in that life cycle, we have the potential to turn them from just maybe loyal ticket buyers or subscribers and donors into those advocates that we've also been talking about, the zealots, ideally. But understanding the life cycle of a patron and where they are at any given point, that's really kind of half of the equation. The other half is that you have to reach them where they live. Now, we all know intuitively, but fortunately we do have research to back up, that the majority of adults in the US are online. Okay, we all know that. But you know what? It's also the very affluent and the well-educated that are online. So in other words, our ticket buyers and our donors, this is where they are. And a little bonus is that sweet spot for audience development, they're online too. So really what this says is that the market is telling us where to go. And it's on us to go to that spot to spread our message, because otherwise it's just going to get lost in the wind. Now, you've probably heard over the course of your career, and you probably know too, how important word of mouth is. Now, of course, sitting at a dinner table and hearing your friend talk passionately about a theater performance, that has a huge impact and it's important. But I would argue that in this day and age, we want more than that. We want to try to amplify. And we also have research that shows social media is the platform to do this. So kind of tying all of this together, I want to take kind of a slight little detour. How many people here know of Colleen Dillon Schneider? She writes the blog Know Your Own Bone. She's fantastic. We're huge fans of her. If you don't know her, I really recommend that you check out her blog. So she's a cultural marketer. She's an engagement expert, but she also is the head of an audience research firm called Impacts. And Colleen actually spends a lot of time in the museum sector, or as she phrases it, visitor-serving nonprofits, which to me is fancy speak for zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, and things like that. And I think I really enjoy personally, given my background, spending time reading her thoughts, because, for a museum, they think about the whole social media picture a lot different than performing arts. For them, online ticket sales, it's just not a big piece of their revenue pie, right? Because unless there's a time-ticketed event, there's really no urgency to buy your ticket online to go to a museum. So historically, they've thought more about engagement, trying to see, okay, how can we get people to become members or very loyal members? And, maybe how can we include retail and try to upsell some people? But as Colleen has pointed out, increasingly, they are also thinking about fundraising and how can we meet our donors online and get them engaged, because as we know, just like subscribers, donors really care. They've dedicated some of their income to you because they believe in you. And really, her main point about all of this, and she says it, of course, in a more eloquent way than I ever could, is that the single most impactful thing you can do in order to have multiple healthy revenue streams is to have a pan-organizational approach to patron engagement, retention, and advocacy. And that's a key idea, I think, as performing arts organizations, it really applies. So going back to silos, let's face it, sometimes between marketing and development, it can be pretty pronounced. And having been in both departments, I understand it. We have big goals for income, and your head is down, you're just trying to get stuff done. Okay, but the thing of it is, sometimes as a result, offline and online strategies don't quite mesh, and it's kind of a shame because really when you think about it, marketing and development really have the same objectives. What they're trying to do is, whoever their patrons are, they're trying to move them along from awareness to loyalty, to committing more of their personal resources, and then eventually, hopefully, advocacy, being major donors, being those loyal subscribers. So really, they think about objectives in the same way. And I think what I would challenge, especially marketing people in the room, is to figure out a way to start the dialogue with development departments. And this also applies to education or artistic. But start that dialogue and try to start changing the perception of marketing as not just a service provider that, once development's ready to go and they need a masthead for an email, they come to you and need your graphic designer. Instead, get involved at the beginning and think about ways that, of course, on the foundation of direct mail and email, how can we amplify with social media? How can we use digital banners to really reach the right people at the right life cycle stage and really get the message out? So, okay, I love conferences. I always feel so inspired, and I get back to my desk, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to change everything. I cannot wait. But, I also understand I have to go through all my emails, and the reality of getting back to work hits. And if time and money were not an issue, chances are we would all be implementing everything we've heard yesterday and today. But, the reality is time is so precious. As Eric said, he was using it in a different context, but it applies to us too. Time is so precious. So you might wonder, okay, Jana, I barely have time to do what I need to do for marketing. Why should I be trying to get development to do digital campaigns? And what I would argue is that when you're trying to build arguments or just lobby for more resources for having a really robust digital marketing plan, what really helps and what leaders love to hear is how all the different income streams in an organization could benefit from sort of broadening this approach. And if you can get development and education to be internal advocates, to get excited about the idea of digital and what it can do for their objectives, then you have a squad of advocates that can go up the chain to management and try to lobby for more media resources. And just as Karen said yesterday, things get repurposed. A development video is going to have legs in other areas. So really, if you can kind of cultivate that team environment, which is tough at times, it's going to serve you in the long run. So here are 3 different things I truly believe you could start doing next week without much trouble. The very first thing is, from your desk chair, find your donors and subscribers online. This is actually pretty easy. And what this really just means is segmenting and targeting the people in your universe. Okay, so that means remarketing pixels. And in a little bit, we're going to talk some more about this and how you can go about it in actual campaigns. But remarketing pixels can be placed in pools developed for both display banner campaigns, but also in social and Facebook. It also means taking CRM lists and using them for both targeting and suppression. Think of it sort of from the fundraising standpoint. If you want to meet people who can slice and dice audiences, go to your development department. They are masters at it. And just like we wouldn't send an email blast to everybody in the database, right? We would not ever do that. What we want to do in social media, it's the same idea. You want to send the message that's appropriate to that person at the right time. Make the right ask at the right time to the right person, be it ticket sales, donations, or even getting people to sign up for an education class. So the second thing is do that test campaign. It doesn't take a lot of money because, again, we're using very targeted groups or CRM lists. You can find your donors, target them with a little bit of money. And again, this is built on top of what development's already doing, direct mail and email. And this is just going to amplify it and teach them that their audiences do pay attention in the social sphere. And then finally, harness content across your organization. If you haven't picked up on it yet, you're a media company, and you have amazing assets hidden across your organization. I mean, I don't know, personally, I used to love walking down to the prop shop, to the scene shop, and just seeing what they were creating. These are amazingly talented people. Toy with the idea of creating a content team that pulls people from departments across the organization. A lot of organizations have people that have been there for a long time, so they have institutional knowledge of different traditions or just thematic ideas that maybe you wouldn't know about if you're newer to the organization. The idea, though, is get the team together, get people excited, and build those internal advocates. And frankly, in the long run, it's going to decrease your workload for content production. So finally, I guess I would just leave you with this idea. All that we've been talking about, it's a culture change, and that takes time. So the more you can build on the small successes and just build those advocates internally, the more success you're going to have in the long run. But be patient and realize this isn't going to happen in one season. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Paula. Appreciate it. Morning, everybody. If you've been to boot camp before, you know that they trot me out when it's time to talk about measurement. So here I am. So who are the people in the room who are the data geeks or nerds? Ooh, there's lots more than last year. That makes me happy. Or the people who really enjoy ticket sales. Sarah Lally, that's me too. So I love all the things. I love to talk about this topic. I was thinking about Karen's presentation on my way in this morning, and one of the things she was talking about was having gained the trust of leadership. And the only way that she really could have done that is by proper measurement, right? She needed to show that she could earn some big bucks with those efforts. So it's an important thing. The thing that's so exciting about digital to me is its inherent ability to be measured. If you are older than the age of 40 in this room, then you likely remember a time before digital where you really couldn't measure anything. So to me, the minute we could start measuring things, I was always fascinated. And the thing that we have to think about is that as these capabilities become increasingly sophisticated, and they are becoming sophisticated by the day, as any of my colleagues can tell you, it's really, really important that as we begin to embark on campaigns and initiatives, that we identify key performance indicators from the outset of those efforts. Again, we said this a lot now, key performance indicators is simply your choice of what your metrics of success are, right? And often on the other end of the phone with arts marketers, when I ask that question, sometimes the line goes silent, and it's something that we have to get better at as arts marketers, being okay with identifying what those things are. Sometimes I feel like people expect me to tell them what they are, and it's something that we have to get better about learning, especially when it comes to digital, because there's so many things that we can actually measure. And specifically when it comes to digital, one of the main reasons why we need to know, especially if you're working with us, one of the reasons that we need to know what your KPIs are is because we can optimize toward those choices. If you are running an acquisition campaign and your primary objective is sending people to your website, we need to know that because we can optimize towards clicks. If your primary objective is direct response and conversions, right? Conversions equals purchases, in case you haven't picked up on that by now. We need to know that. We can optimize towards users who are more likely to convert. I showed this last year. If you saw me talk about conversions last year, I love this slide. This is an aggregation of all of Google's verticals. It's not representative of our industry as a whole. But I think it's just great to take a peek at, right? Because it shows how different channels play different roles on the path to conversion. It doesn't mean that if something is not in that last interaction column, the one that actually drives conversion, it doesn't mean that those other channels are not important. We still have to move people down the funnel, right? This is essentially a funnel turned on its side. So it's important to think about where people are in the process on the way to the conversion and how you're talking to them. I like to sort of get out of an arts example to illustrate this. So I'm a triathlete and a marathoner, running the marathon on Sunday. Who else is running? Holly's running the marathon. Somebody back there? Anybody else? There's just 3 of us? Okay. That's a lot for this room, I think. But, you know, I'm a 41-year-old man, and I need to get massaged every once in a while to be able to train this hard. The idea of massage on demand is appealing to me for that reason, in case you went down a different path. So I also really, really like apps. And if you've ever held my phone, most people's reaction is like, shit, you have a lot of apps on your phone. There's just folders after folders after folders. So I pay particular attention to app ads on my Facebook newsfeed. And so this organization's app ad came up, and I was like, oh, cool, I might be able to use that. So my action was to download the app. So in that moment, the ad was written as sort of a top of funnel segment. So I'm not going to download that app and then immediately book a massage on demand. That's just not an expected activity. So the ad was written to speak to me because I'm up here, and I took the appropriate action. What they now can do is I now have the app. I probably have the push notification turned on. They can message me in a different way now because I've moved myself down the funnel, right? So this is just my way of illustrating that where people are is important and how we talk to them. Are they in an acquisition space, or are they in a space where you can start converting them? So my colleagues it's going to be like a cavalcade of case studies in a second. And so thinking about KPIs is going to be really important as you start to see all of the data they're going to show you. So I just want to like run through a bunch of channels that we should all be taking advantage of and just talk about some of these KPIs. These aren't the only ones or the ones I think you should use. I just want to talk about some as an example. So for paid search, so for many of you that means a Google grant, right? Clicks are obviously important. This is a cost per click model, so this is an important measure. Ad position, that's an important KPI, right? Are you showing up in the first position, the second position? Are you over here in the right-hand rail in 3, 4, or 5? Impression share, like how much share of voice are you getting for those terms that you're searching, that you're bidding on? Calls, if you have call forwarding enabled in your account, which I don't have time to explain right now, but essentially enables you to track phone calling. If you want to know more about that, you can talk to us after. But it allows you to identify phone calls from search ads as a conversion. And then, of course, we all know that search definitely drives conversion at the end. So identifying conversions as a KPI is obviously a desired choice. For display, from an acquisition perspective, impressions are really important, right? We want to be showing up in great frequency when we're in an acquisition mode. Clicks to me are not necessarily as important as looking at click-through rate because I want to see my clicks in ratio to the number of impressions that I'm serving. And then, of course, if we're thinking about display from like a retargeting or direct response perspective, it's amazing at conversion. We also want to be thinking about how much it's costing us to convert those people. So is it costing us 20 bucks for a conversion? Is it costing us 40 bucks? So CPA. Social. So if any of you work with capacity, you know that we're very dictatorial about this. We don't let your post go over like a two frequency. So that means like the average user is seeing that paid promotion twice in their newsfeed. I mean, the newsfeed is like a personal space. It's like getting into like second or third base with somebody, you know? Like, I don't want you to get in my pants too many times, you know? So 2 is a good number, right? So it's important to pay attention to. If you go in Facebook Ads Manager and you see a 10, you've spammed the crap out of somebody. Now they just hate you, right? So it's an important number to pay attention to, and it's one you really have to stay on top of. We've talked about video a lot at this point in the conference. So video views is a great KPI for a campaign, especially if you're in a place where you're not able to measure conversion because that's not the phase of business you're in right now. Video views is a great KPI. Post shares to me is the single most important metric on an actual post level. I don't really care how many likes it's getting or comments. Shares are so much more meaningful and drive so much more traffic. New fans, this is important for all organizations who are sort of like dipping more toes into the water, right? Growing your Facebook fan base. And of course, Facebook can convert. Don't doubt about it or we'll write nasty blog posts. So YouTube is great for brand lift. Video views is a great KPI. View rate, so like how many people are being served this and how many people are actually watching it. And then reach per frequency. So like all you old timers like me who used to have to buy TV, Reach per frequency is like how many people saw this one time, how many people saw this video 2 times, how many people saw this 3 times, except when you're buying TV, it's like comes from a sample set of data and it's not really real, but for YouTube, it's the actual data. So for your website, we're starting to design longer scrolled pages now, right? Because we're in a tablet world, we're all used to flicking, so pages are starting to get longer. Are users making it to the bottoms of those pages? In your analytics, you can set this up and measure that as a KPI. How long are people spending on those pages? You can sort of redefine bounce from that perspective by combining those 2 metrics and saying, if somebody hits your production detail page coming from a Facebook ad, and that production detail page is awesome and has all the information they need on it, but they're not ready to convert, that was still a meaningful visit if they don't go anywhere else. I wouldn't classify that as a bounce. And so with the combination of like scroll depth and timers, you can actually find out if that's the case. New visits, if you're in an audience development mode, how many people are coming to your website who are new versus returning? And you can build into, using events, you can build into your website to find out if people are actually sharing content. We just did that for Lincoln Center Theater. It's kind of fascinating data to look at, but that's an amazing piece of, that's an amazing KPI to me, given that we all talk about getting people to share our content. Emails, dinosaur at this point, isn't it? Opens a great KPI to tell you if your subject line is working. Clicks, it's a great KPI to determine whether or not the content of your email is actually good. Is anyone clicking on it? And of course, email is amazing as a direct response vehicle, so conversions as a KPI. This is one of my new favorites. So obviously, we've talked about how multi-device the world is at this point. 9 in 10 people start an activity and finish it on another. 9 in 10 people, that's practically everyone. So now we can actually report on cross-device diversions. We can do this on Facebook, and we can do this with Google. I'm personally fascinated by this. I like to pop a beer on a Friday night and like binge watch Downton Abbey and like look at my clients' campaigns and look and see how many there are. That's just me. I'm just saying, if you're a little bored. But so this is from Google. They show 12% increase. This is for our sector, for entertainment, when you factor in cross-device conversions, a 12% increase in conversions. 32% of people who interact with a promoted post on Facebook then go on to the desktop and convert in the next 28 days. 32%. It's amazing. All right, so none of this measurement is really possible without those little things called pixels. So who here in the room has ever been charged with having to get a pixel implemented on your website? Who here doesn't know what a pixel is before I even go any farther? Anybody need that explained? Okay, great. Thank you for being brave enough to raise your hand. So a pixel is a silly little mess of code that you're asked to put down on your website, and it enables us to track activity. It's like a sort of tracking tag on an animal. That's how I like to think about it. So back to my original question, who here has ever been asked to put down a pixel? And who here now can look at that equation and agree that it is an incredibly painful process? Everybody. It's awful. It's awful. And it's awful for a lot of reasons, but mostly like you may have to deal with your IT department. And let's just be clear. All this kind of technology, this has to be driven from marketing. If you don't believe that, then you must start to believe it today. The IT department doesn't give a fuck about this. They don't. It absolutely has to be driven by the marketing department. You can't deny it any longer. But now there are things that make that so much easier. So there's not anything to be fearful about. I'm going to show you that in a second. But IT departments traditionally have had to implement pixels for us, and it was just a real pain in the ass and super expensive. So now we have tag management, right? So tag management, oh shit, I forgot my prop. Tag management is basically this. It's like putting a little purse on every page of your website. Like they're trying to get me my tote. It's okay, I've already done it. I've already gestured. Thank you, Nick. It's like putting a little purse on every page of your website. And in that purse, you're able to put down all of your tags. It's easy and free. You can do it on your timeline, and you don't need your IT department. So here's my purse. So in our purse, we can put down all our retargeting pixels and our Google Analytics code, right? You can actually deploy your Google Analytics tracking code on your website through Tag Manager, not putting it directly on the page. Your conversion tags can go into your purse, right? So here's how it works. the first step of putting down Google Tag Manager, and PS, we've now been talking about Tag Manager for 2 years. Like this is the year. So on Monday, mark some time on your calendar to like open it up for an hour and start looking at it, because everybody needs to start getting this down on their websites now. I cannot tell you how much client time is lost and how much of our time is lost deploying pixels. We all have to get on top of this problem. The first step of Google Tag Manager, it does involve your IT department. So this is Jacob's Pillow's instance of Google Tag Manager. So the container, the purse, has its own little code, and that's the only code that gets put down on the site. So as most of you probably have right now, all of your actual retargeting pixels and conversion pixels, that code is copied and pasted onto actual pages. With Tag Manager, you only put down the little purse code one time. One code goes down one time on every page. So this is what it looks like. It's meaningless, who cares? You copy and paste that in an email and you give it to your IT department. And your IT department then has to put this down globally across your site. That is step one. So now we're gonna do live implementation. And so for that, Mary Claire has volunteered from Jacob's Pillow to come up. And of course, now, because we're doing something live, it's sure to go wrong. And so Mary Claire has volunteered to lead us in chair Zumba if something goes wrong.
If it does go wrong.
If it goes wrong. All right. So Mary Claire's going to drive. Mary Claire is a director of marketing. Mary Claire, have you ever had to use Tag Manager before?
No. Greg does it.
Yes. So this is a great example. She's never had to do this. It will never really be her job, but it's conceptually important that everybody understands this and can explain it, because you're going to have to tell IT how to do this. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is just pop back. We're going to pop back to PowerPoint. We're going to copy a little pixel.
Okay.
All right, so what we're going to do in this example, gang, is put down the retargeting pixel for Facebook. So this is going to enable, so you're going to copy and paste all that. If you can, do you need my reading glasses for that? So small.
I mean, I am kind of.
We're putting down a Facebook retargeting pixel. This will allow Jacob's Pillow to retarget people who have visited their website in those users' Facebook news feeds. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you copy and paste?
I
You copied.
did.
Okay. All right. So step one here, we are going to click into your purse. So that little Jacob's Pillow thing there, that's your purse. Go inside your purse. All right. So this is sort of the overview of the purse. So you can see already there's a few things in her purse already. So we're going to click New because we're going to put the tag down.
New.
We're going to do New, and then you can do a couple things. We're going to do New Tag. You're doing so well. Let's call this tag name Live Demo, just for the sake of this. Very good. So now we're going to go to Tag Type. So in here,
There are a lot of options.
There are a lot of options. So there are some templates in here already. So if you were putting down a Google AdWords conversion tracking tag or a Google AdWords remarketing tag, those templates are already in here, and it actually makes it easier and faster to put those down. For the majority of tags other than those in Google Tag Manager, you'll be putting down what's called an HTML tag. And it just means you're going to take the jumbly, ugly code that we as digital marketers don't really care about and paste it into a field. So we're going to select the HTML code. Yep. Very good. And now you're just going to paste that in there. Very nice. Everybody with me so far? Could this be any easier? We're nearly done. Okay. Scroll down just a little bit. So there's a couple things here in advanced settings. We don't need to do any of these. I'm not skipping any steps to make this easier. This really is as easy as it is. There's a thing up there that says firing rules. Mm-hmm. Okay, remember, Tag Manager is our purse, and our purse is on every single page of the website. So now we have to tell Tag Manager when we want it to fire this pixel. So in this particular example, we want this pixel to fire on every page because we want to remarket people regardless of where they went on the page. We can actually pool those people in segments later in Facebook. But to capture them all, we want it to fire on every single page. If we were putting down a purchase conversion pixel, we would only want that to fire where?
The thank you page.
Exactly. So we would set that up in firing rules. So let's click Add there on the firing rules. So you can see here, all pages is there by default when you install Google Tag Manager. That will already be there for you. They already have Google Tag Manager on their website, so we've set up ticket purchase confirmation for another firing rule, and you can see it basically is set up by saying the URL equals, and it is the URL of that page. So it's quite simple. But for this, we're just going to select all pages and click Save. Very good. Nearly done. Click save.
Okay.
That's all we do. All right. What do we say?
Oh, God.
Just change the name. Say demos or something. Anything else?
Demos. Christopher Williams.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
You told me
we're
this would
so
be really
close.
easy.
We're so close to Zumba. Okay. All right. So we only have 2 more steps. So the next thing we're going to do is create a version. So every time that we need to update Tag Manager, it's sort of like buying a new purse or like creating a new version of the purse. So that's what she's going to do now. She's going to create a new version of this. And this is the reason why IT people like Tag Manager is because it's safe. If this fucks this up, we can revert back to the old purse. So that's why we're creating a version. All right, so you got it? So we're going to name it right there. See how it default gave it a number 5? Click on that little pencil that barely looks like a pencil there. So let's just call this MC's purse. You can come up with whatever naming protocol you want to. We typically would call this like added a Facebook remarketing pixel so that the next person that was in here would know what this version of Tag Manager was for. All right,
But
so you
not
got
the
that?
date, right? You had suggested that to me before.
It's really up to you. You can actually, it will end up having something over here,
Yeah.
but the protocol is completely up to you. There's not a real identified thing that you have to do. Okay, so we have all those. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is preview, sorry. All right, so when this dialog comes up, this is gonna allow us to text. So you know when IT people say we have to QA something? That's what we're about to do. We're about to QA something.
Feels so techie.
I know. So you're gonna click debug. And now it's going to bring up a dialog box that's going to show all of the domains that their Tag Manager instance is on. So we're just going to go to your homepage. So let's just click jacobspool.org. This is going to launch your website. And so this overlay happens along the bottom. I personally find this so satisfying. Mary Claire, scroll, and we can see all of the tags that are firing on the page down there. So there's live demo. There's live demo CW. That's our real thing. So we're done. That pixel is working. We have one final step to go through. Also, that would be Leadacity firing on their website as well. All right, so let's pop back to Tag Manager. All right, and now we are just going to exit out of preview mode. And our final step, close. Our final step is to just click publish. And publish. Done. People. That's easy, right? Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Seriously, even if you're not a client, if you needed help to get this on your website, I am offering to take that call. I want everyone to prioritize this. It really is that easy. So just carve out the time and make it happen. I know that some of you are sitting there thinking like, this has to be more complicated. There are things that you can do to capture more custom variables, right? Like we might want to know how much money is in the shopping cart, and we might want to know what is in the shopping cart so we can fire this for, say, where it's the Boston Ballet, and we want to know only the people who have Swan Lake in their shopping cart. That can be done, and that requires doing work on the data layer, and that involves your IT department or perhaps an external developer. Again, it's not incredibly complicated, but there's a little bit of extra work there to capture that stuff. But to just put down remarketing pixels and capture the behavior of purchasing, that's all it takes. All right, gang? Peace.
Alrighty, let's get back in. Great. Has everybody promised to go home to your organizations and install Google Tag Manager? And to do it? Great. I'm going to change it up a little bit now. We're going to run through some of the case studies that we talked about a little bit earlier. And first up, we have Bravo Veil, why you need to show your non-branded keywords some love. So last summer, we partnered with Bravo Veil, and through that partnership, we rebuilt and managed their Google AdWords campaign. And they operate on a Google grant. And Bravo Veil is a summer music festival in Vail, Colorado. So it was important that we include branded campaigns, obviously, but also non-branded campaigns. Just to walk you through a little bit of what those are. So I think many of us know the importance of branded keywords. They include in terms like your name of your organization or other branded words that you use to identify yourself. And generally people who come into your site using branded keywords are familiar with your organization already. They have a little bit of a starting off place. Non-branded keywords serve as acquisition. So, for Bravo Veil, they evolved around sort of events in Colorado sort of to capture that tourism traffic, people planning their visit, or even locals just looking for something to do who might not have visited the organization in the past. And when we built out these campaigns, we're very strategic with the sort of the non-branded keywords that we use. We have a lot of history of like building these out. We know what works and what doesn't, and how to set up those campaign structures. So it's important that when you're doing acquisition that you really strategically think about how to get in front of the right people at the right time. So through working with these campaigns, we learned 3 really important things about non-branded keywords. The first is it drives acquisition traffic to your site. And I know it sounds obvious. I just said we use it for acquisition, but I think if we look at the data, we can see just how successful it was for Bravo Vail. Looking at the graph, 90% of the traffic that came to their site that season from non-branded keywords were new visitors to the site, so people who had never been there before. Comparing that to the site average of 57%, you can see just how successful those non-branded keywords were at getting in front of people who are new to the organization, didn't really know anything about Bravo Vail before. Looking out a little bit, we can see that those non-branded keywords drove 6.5% of all site traffic during that period, and 10% of all new traffic to the site. So again, it was just an extremely successful acquisition campaign that brought in new people, again, totally unfamiliar with the organization. Second thing, non-branded keywords help us beat out the competition. It's important for everyone, no matter what market you're in, but Vail is obviously very tourism-based, it's super competitive, and the way that we evaluated this is through impression share. Christopher talked about it a little bit, but it's kind of just a fancy way of saying the number of searches for which your keywords were eligible divided by the number of times your ad appeared. So we can see that we were able to beat out some really, really, really big sites. Vail.com, TripAdvisor, these are huge companies, much bigger budgets. There we go. So we were first in impression share within those non-branded campaigns, which was great. And last, but certainly not least, non-branded keywords generated revenue and drove sales. So again, through the festival season, those keywords brought in over $12,000 in revenue, and because we're operating on a Google grant, that's all with 0 paid media. So again, looking at the number of conversions, it was 23% of all conversions that came in through search were from non-branded keywords, which when you think about something that we view as acquisition and the main goal is to drive people to your site, it's incredibly successful to see that those keywords are also bringing in people who are purchasing tickets. So those are the 3 main takeaways that we wanted to talk about with non-branded keywords. I'm going to turn it over to Shira.
Hi, everyone. So we're always telling our clients that some of the biggest digital marketing battles are lost and won on Facebook. And we think that it's such a crucial platform for arts marketers to be on Facebook for a couple reasons that we've already talked about today. But 2 of them are, it's such a great place for social storytelling, and also, as we talked about, everybody's on Facebook. But we're also always telling our clients that they have to stay super relevant with their messaging and their content. So how can you stay super relevant with your messaging if you're talking to everyone at the same time? You can't. If you're taking advantage of the really precise targeting and audience segmenting capabilities on Facebook, the logistical part of this is pretty easy. The harder part is being able to write content that's appropriate for people who are still at the top of your marketing funnel and different content for people who are at the bottom of your marketing funnel, and then setting your key performance indicators so that they're appropriate for each. So this past summer, we ran a Facebook campaign for Jacob's Pillow, which we've talked about a lot. And one of their challenges for this campaign was communicating effectively with multiple audiences on Facebook. And some of their goals, of course, were to drive sales and revenue and to drive engagement and build their retargeting pools, of course, always looking ahead for the future. They met that challenge by developing content that was specific to both the top of the funnel and then also the bottom of the funnel. And we've seen this little graphic before. Eric explained this illustration of permission-based marketing, and the idea, is that you can't expect someone who's a stranger to become an evangelist before they've become your friend, and before they've become your customer and they've had that delightful experience. So here's an example of a top of funnel post. I hope you can read it from back there. If you can't, it says, "A vibrant festival of inspirational dance is happening now through August 24th. Isn't it time to cross Jacob's Pillow off your bucket list?" So the intention here was for the post to be really introductory, to be welcoming, to have striking imagery, of course, a thumb snapper, and it had a very subtle call to action. The KPIs that we linked with it were all engagement metrics, so likes, shares, comments, and key page views. Here's an example of a post that we served to the bottom of the funnel. So Jacob's Pillow fans, their CRM email lists, and retargeting pools. Have you heard Trey McIntyre Project is making a big change, and this will no longer tour as a full-time company. Your last chance to see TMP is this month at Jacob's Pillow. So the slide there, the intention here was to have a sense of earned familiarity. You know, this is part of a larger organizational story. We've been communicating with you. We want to continue communicating with you. It's got some granular content about one specific artist, and it has a really strong and time-sensitive call to action. The KPIs that we linked with this were all conversion metrics, so conversions, ROI, conversion rate, things like that. And here were the results. By the end of the summer, we got their cost per acquisition down to $20, which is a really great benchmark for other dance clients of ours. And to give you some perspective, an average order value for the pillow this past summer was $160. So that led to this really healthy ROI of 690%. The campaign also garnered just about 3,500 new page likes for the pillow, which means 3,500 new fans for next summer and new people in their retargeting pools. So this short case study just shows that speaking really relevantly to all of your constituents and being really respectful for where they are in the marketing funnel can drive both sales and engagement.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathleen McFarlane and I'm an analyst at Capacity Interactive. And this case study is on World Music Crash Arts, feeding the marketing funnel. So World Music Crash Arts is a really neat presenting organization, and they bring a wide variety of musical talent from all over the globe to perform in Boston. And we worked with them on their display advertising, their Facebook advertising, and also their search grant account. So when we first started working with World Music Crash Arts, they had a pretty small digital footprint. So we had to think pretty strategically about how we were going to achieve our goals for them. And our goals really included driving site traffic, enhancing brand awareness, and increasing ticket sales. So how did we do this? Well, during the first 2 weeks of the 6-week campaign, we really wanted to focus on bringing new people into the top of the marketing funnel. So this really meant focusing on acquiring new leads. So for Facebook in particular, that meant targeting interest groups, so people interested in different types of music that they were presenting at World Music Crash Arts, and these people lived in and around Boston. In addition, it also meant targeting lookalike audiences, so people who look like Facebook fans, people who look like their website visitors, and also people who really look like their CRM email lists. And finally, we also targeted friends of fans, so friends of people who are fans on their Facebook. And for display, this meant really focusing on lookalikes and interests. And so by using this strategy, we were really able to drive a lot of new site traffic and really grow our remarketing pool. And so during the first 2 weeks of the campaign, when we were focused on acquiring new leads, our key performance indicators were really impressions and click-through rate, which harkens back to what Christopher was talking about earlier. And you'll see here that our click-through rate was quite strong at 0.4%, and that's given that banner ads are typically a view-through vehicle. So this was actually very encouraging to see. So then in weeks 3 through 6, once we'd really broadened our remarketing pool, we were then very able to focus on retargeting those website visitors and also focusing on really bringing people down the funnel and targeting fans and also CRM email lists. And so during this time frame, our key performance indicators were really conversion rate, the number of conversions, and the ROI. And you'll see up here that for Google, we had a very strong conversion rate, and for both Google and Facebook, we had strong, healthy ROIs. So we were very pleased with these results. So really over the course of the 6-week campaign in its entirety, we were able to really grow our pool of prospects by over 250% by using this strategy. And so the key takeaway here is really investing in acquisition in the beginning of a campaign can really help set the stage for successful remarketing later on. And this particularly pertains to smaller performing arts organizations that perhaps don't have a lot of site traffic to begin with or don't have many Facebook fans. This can really help broaden the reach of their retargeting campaigns. And the second case study that I'm going to talk to you about today is EMP Museum and using search to grow their remarketing pools. So this is just another way that you can really grow your remarketing pool. So EMP Museum is a really neat museum. They're located in Seattle, Washington, and they focus on pop culture and sci-fi and music. And we worked with them on their grant search account and also their display advertising. And so when we first started working with EMP Museum, we really identified a couple of challenges right off the bat in regards to their digital advertising. And one of those challenges was that their exhibitions run for often several months and don't have an end date set. So there's definitely a lack of urgency for people to buy tickets online, like Jonna was mentioning earlier. And also, they really only see about 15% of their ticket sales coming from online. And when you view that in comparison to the typical performing arts organization that sees about 50% of their ticket sales coming from online, this was definitely a challenge in regards to digital advertising. And then finally, there really wasn't a strong incentive for people to buy tickets online versus at the door. There was no strong perk given for people to buy tickets online. So how did we face these challenges? Well, we decided to build out really robust search campaigns approximately 6 weeks before we built out their display campaigns. And this would give us enough time to really drive a lot of site traffic, thereby broadening the remarketing pool. But also, it really helped to enhance brand awareness and enhance awareness of what the museum has to offer, so their different exhibitions. So by using this method, you'll see that we had a 6,600% increase in Google CPC traffic, which is search and display traffic, coming to their website in September 2014 versus the same month in 2013. In addition, in 2014, Google CPC traffic was actually the third overall driver to their website. So that is to say that it really accounted for 7% of their overall site traffic during that time frame, and in 2013, it only accounted for 1/10 of a percentage point. So there was definitely a huge growth there. And perhaps even more importantly, there was an over 30% increase in total site traffic during September 2014 versus 2013. And not all of this can be, of course, attributed to digital advertising, but a significant portion of it can. And so with this increased site traffic, we really had a broadened remarketing pool that we were then able to target all these new people once we launched our banner campaign 6 weeks later. And so the key takeaway here is that you can really use search results to deliver leads to your website and broaden your remarketing pools for display. And search and display really work best when working together. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm going to present 3 quick cases that all have to do with subscriptions and more specifically using social media to sell subscriptions. We often get that question from clients. Hey, you know, have you guys done anything with subscriptions online? We sure have. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Jazz at Lincoln Center. So one of the great things about working with Jazz at Lincoln Center, I personally feel, is that they always have an eye at cultivating that next generation of subscribers and ticket buyers and jazz enthusiasts. So when they came to us and wanted to try out a subscription campaign through social media, you know, it was great because they had this new Flex package, the Take 3, 4, 5 series, that they wanted to try to grow. But at the same time, they didn't want to dissuade those people who wanted to do a more traditional set package. And fundamentally, they also wanted to answer the question of whether or not Facebook could even be harnessed for this task. So when we developed the campaign, we did both social media, but we also did display ads. But I wanted to show you a couple of the Facebook posts because what they illustrate is that we really honed in and tailored copy to talk to the audience we wanted to reach. And really, we segmented based on whether they were acquisition audiences, trying to get those people who maybe had bought tickets but never subscribed, or if they were renewal audiences. And of course, as with the copy, this was mirrored on the back end. And the nice thing about Facebook is there are so many tools you can use to really hone in on the exact audience you want. we didn't want to just build these ads and send people to a general page. So we created a custom landing page. These are actually just 2 segments. In between was also a beautiful video that was taken during the season photo shoot. And it just showed the artists improvising and having a lot of fun. And that really tied back to the key themes that we presented in this campaign, which was that subscribing is actually about personal style and flexibility. So one thing that was really interesting was Jazz already had plans to run display ads through New York Times through a direct buy. So we had this great opportunity to really test the performance of Facebook and display ads against that New York Times run because we did third-party ad serving, so we could directly track the conversions. So the results were very strong, as you can see here. Over 2,500% ROI for Facebook, over 2,400% ROI for the display, and both display and Facebook had a CPA of less than $20. And that compares with New York Times, we saw a $54 CPA. And perhaps most obvious, the New York Times ads were a bit more expensive. We were able to do the Facebook campaign for about $3,000, display ads through Google for about $2,000, compared to $20,000 media spend for New York Times. Seattle Opera is another great organization that we worked with on a subscription campaign, And simply put, their question that they wanted to ask and that we wanted to find out was, would renewal subscribers take action via Facebook during that first wave of renewal brochures that went out? So, as with Jazz, it was all about segmentation and tailoring copy. We targeted those renewal subscribers, and we honed in on the copy that we knew would speak most to them. They cared about the value proposition points that included lower prices and free parking. And so we kept it simple, as you can see, an infographic that shows very clearly the advantage of subscribing. So with both of those, it's really important to hone in on the fact that this was not done in isolation. We saw a 40,000% ROI, which is kind of mind-boggling. But again, there's a lot of things that went into this. The direct mail hit at the same time. There were email campaigns going out. And this, in and of itself, the renewal subscribers, that's an incredibly loyal audience. So they were primed to act. It was relatively inexpensive to do this via Facebook. And with most operas, a subscription, there's a very high average order value. So we just want to caveat that. This isn't a typical result, but it's very impressive nonetheless. And so is the corresponding revenue. And what's great to see is that 204 of those subscribers came in via the Facebook campaign. So finally, I'm just going to touch on Jacob's Pillow once again. What we wanted to do with Jacob's Pillow was to see how early during the preseason could we motivate members and subscribers, so members being people who've donated, and as an advantage, they have access to earlier ticketing. We wanted to see how early in the preseason they would actually take action or perhaps consider moving up a level in membership. So really, the challenge was, how do we get these people to move in the direction we want them to move? And to make sure that we don't undersell people in the process. So just as with the other campaigns I mentioned, it was all about segmentation, but not just about targeting, about suppression via CRM lists. And it's really the same idea that we use in fundraising, right? It's the idea that you make certain asks to certain people at a certain time. Fortunately, Facebook has made this so easy. When you go into Ads Manager on the left panel, there's an audience tab, and you click on that, and you can create custom audiences based on remarketing pools or uploading a CRM list. And then when you're actually creating the campaign in Power Editor, you can choose, you can see on the bottom left there, you can choose which custom audiences to include or exclude, and that's the suppression element. And then the English major in me would like you to take note of the metaphorical segmentation of the dancers. And so on to results. One thing to note when we look at these results, I mean, the Pillow, they're so wonderful to work with because the content that they have to work with is beautiful, and they're just pros in every way. So what we saw overall was a 50% increase in subscribers. Interesting, 26% increase in member subscriber purchases. So again, it was sort of that idea of moving specific people in an upsell direction. And also an 8% click-through rate. And that's really important too, because remember, this was during the preseason. So we were getting people to start thinking about the summer ahead and go to the website. And then because they were on the website and we had those marketing pixels down, those people could then be targeted for later single ticket campaigns if they didn't subscribe. So all in, we saw about 11,000 website visits during this window. And we did all of this for $1,000. So those are just, yeah, Mary Claire's down with it. Yeah, so again, those are just 3 different subscription campaigns we have done recently. They're all slight variations, but they all show that social media does work in the subscription context. And now Nick is up.
Hey there, I'm Nick Nolte. I'm a senior analyst, and I'm going to speak briefly on setting up proxy conversions. What happens if you can't get a confirmation or a conversion pixel on your confirmation or thank you page? So as you've heard us say, one of our mantras is, if it's digital, measure something. Arguably the most important pixel you can place is a conversion pixel. And you know now, like, a conversion pixel will measure how many conversions can be attributed to your digital campaigns. So what you're looking at here is a common path to conversion. You know, a user may enter on your homepage or production detail page of your website. They'll click on buy tickets if they want to buy a ticket. And then at that point, they're going to move from the website over to a separate ticketing platform where they can select their date and seat. They'll check out. And then the confirmation page, they hit that and the pixel fires. Now, some websites have the ticketing totally integrated, but more often than not, as many of you probably know, you're going to be dealing with a separate ticketing platform. And this is most applicable to those situations because we run into issues implementing conversion pixels when it is a separate ticketing platform. So if you don't have a conversion pixel, you're going to be able to measure impressions and clicks, but, you know, big whoop. How many conversions do you have? What's your conversion revenue? What's your return on investment? And what's your cost per acquisition? We just won't know. We ran into this with one of my clients earlier this year, where the ticketing platform was just like, nope, not going to happen. No conversion pixels possible. So what we did, since we couldn't implement the pixel on the ticketing platform itself, we went ahead and put it on the website. To do this, we created a Google Tag Manager container, or purse, as you're all familiar with, from Christopher, and we put our tags there. So you can see there's 2 here, one for a Google Grant account and one for a Google Paid account. And then the website developer implemented the GTM code, and then we created a firing rule, so when the Buy Tickets button was clicked, that's where the pixel is going to fire. As you can see, there's a rule for click Buy Tickets. The Buy Tickets button is the last place on the website where the user is going to be, so you know that's where the pixel is going to fire now. And this is the strongest indicator that we have that a sale is actually going to occur. Of course, not every click on a Buy Tickets button is going to be a conversion. As you know, people will leave the process along the way. They may need to consult with a friend on a date and a time. They may, you know, have sticker shock at the price. There's a lot of reasons, as you all know, why a conversion isn't going to happen and why someone might abandon. So we need to come up with a realistic proxy scenario for measuring conversions. So we looked at Google Analytics across some of our clients and purchase behavior in general. And what you're looking at here is a pretty standard conversion funnel rate. As you can see, there's not nearly as many people at the bottom who are converting and actually buying the ticket as who start the process at the top. So in our findings, we found about 10 to 25% of people who actually start orders finish them. So if we know now that we have our pixel down on the Buy Tickets button, if we have 500 clicks on the Buy Tickets button, simple math is going to tell us if 10% of those users purchased, that's 50 conversions. And on the upper end, if 25% purchased, that's 125 conversions. So 17.5% right in the middle of that range is a pretty good proxy. And then we'll have 88 conversions, and then we're able to fill out conversions, revenue, return on investment, and cost per acquisition. So if you can't actually get a confirmation pixel on your thank you page, you really don't have an excuse. Set up proxy conversions, and it will help you make smarter decisions when you're optimizing.
Hi everyone, I'm George Chen and I'm Director of Search, and today I'd like to talk to you about authority in digital marketing. And to begin, let's talk more broadly about authority in general. Like, this is something that impacts us on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not. And we've been conditioned through our entire lifetimes to respond to this in certain ways. And this transcends cultures, races, income levels, and just affects everyone on the planet. So I'd like to start today with a little bit of a history lesson. This is a picture of Stanley Milgram. Stanley Milgram was a psychology professor in Yale in the 1960s, and he was particularly interested in human behavior as it related to authority. It's important to know that he was coming up in the post-World War II era. So as a psychologist, he's dealing with these concepts of World War II and atrocities, and how could these human beings do such awful things to each other? He's going through some of the war trials, and he's hearing soldiers say, like, I was just following orders, and like he's thinking that's like crazy. So he comes up with a set of experiments that are commonly referred to now as the shock box experiments, and I have a video which I can show you that will illustrate it.
Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
Would you open those and tell me which of you is which, please? Teacher. Where? Teacher.
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud. Horse. Rock. House. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer. Horse.
Experiment. That's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
You refuse to go on? The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're going to get a shock. 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
Can't stand it. I'm not going to kill that man there. I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one. Slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
Two-thirds of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
Okay, so that says a lot. What were the results of his experiment? As we just saw, he initially predicted that less than 0.1% of people would issue the most lethally potential shock. And what he found out was it's actually closer to 65%. So he was off by a little bit, all right? 2/3 of the people in this room might kill me, is basically what I'm saying. Although this is New York, so it's not that shocking. But they've run this variation in many times over and under less menacing circumstances and about every time, like, we see high percentages. Like, people will do crazy things if an authority figure tells you to do something. And I realize, like, I'm standing on a podium, on a stage, telling you what to do. So that is not lost on me at all. So let's take a look at modern day, 2014. I told you that authority impacts us on an everyday basis and we're exposed to it. So let's look at some examples. Here we have Budweiser. Like, any of you that have been to a live sporting event, you see this all the time. Like, Budweiser is the official beer of the World Cup. If you're at a Knicks game, it's the official beer of losers. Organic fruit. If I'm trying to get organic fruit, what am I looking for? I'm essentially looking for a sticker, and that's all it really is. Dental products, gum. You see this all the time. 4 out of 5 dentists recommend. If you pay close attention to most dental commercials today, you actually still see a guy in a white coat. He's telling you, buy my toothpaste. I included a picture of a stop sign. But what is a stop sign? It's just a red octagon. It doesn't even need to say stop. Most of you will stop when you see it. So how does this manifest itself in digital marketing media today? Here's an example of Surian's Facebook page. You can see he makes use of subtle authority cues, such as official. He also makes use of this verified checkbox. So I can go to his page and I know, like, hey, this is where I want to go on Facebook to learn about E. McKellen. Let's look at another example. Here's Book of Mormon. They also make use of official Twitter. They also make use of the verified checkbox, but they also have another cue. They say that they're the winner of 9 Tony Awards. So, you know, if for some reason I've been living under a rock and I don't know what the Book of Mormon is, I'd be like, oh, all right, it's won some awards. Maybe I should check it out. Let's look at another Twitter example, because you can't talk about Surian without talking about Sir Patrick. So if I want to follow Patrick Stewart on Twitter, I'm going to search for him because I'm director of search, and it makes the most sense. But which one? This is what comes up. If you guys have Twitter on your mobile apps, you can try that right now. The way I know which one is Patrick Stewart is he has this subtle cue. He has a blue checkbox. It's not that in your face, but it definitely sticks out. So let's compare that with a different example. So this is Will Ferrell, and you can do this. This is, to this day, this exists. Will Ferrell is not verified on Twitter. So if you search for Will Ferrell right now, like, I don't know which one is Will Ferrell, which is a huge tragedy. I love Anchorman. I want funny Anchorman quotes in my Twitter feed, but I can't get them. But look at the results. 3 of them actually have the same image. And 2 of them even say, like, I am the one and only Will Ferrell. And there's 2 of them. So I don't know which one is Will Ferrell. And I'm not going to click into every one and check out his photos and to see if he's got pictures of his wife. Like, I'm not going to do that. So I don't have him in there. So let's look at some search examples. And again, I mentioned that this transcends different industries as well. So NFL.com is the official site of the National Football League. If you want to look at movie trailers, oftentimes they say, like, oh, check out the official trailer, because we're very worried about people making bootleg counterfeit trailers. Ford, oh, I forgot I got animation on this one. Ford also uses official language, but they also take it one step further. They have another cue. They've got the registered trademark symbol, which we see, again, on a daily basis through all sorts of digital marketing. So we've been testing this out on several of our clients and to see, like, what kind of impact this would have. So here's some examples with clients that we work with: Boston Ballet, Lincoln Center Theater, Broadway.com. And how has this been performing? Well, first of all, we see about a 10% higher click-through rate. People see this official messaging, they see authority cues, and it helps drive clicks. Then when they get to the site, they typically spend more time. They've already been preconditioned. They know seeing in, like, oh, this is the official site of the Book of Mormon or whatever. So they'll spend generally about 15% more time than if they hadn't seen that. The other thing, bounce rate, which we've been talking about a lot, people bounce less. They engage with the site more. You can see it in the data. Yosef's talked great about analytics all day. So's Eric. And then the last thing, is the stuff that you guys all care about, and I care about too, is conversion rate. People generally convert higher when they go in. You've preconditioned them. You've selected them. You've made this aware and copy, whether it's social or search. So it's been fantastic. So you can basically summarize this in 2 words, and that's authority matters. And again, I'm not saying you need to completely tear down your marketing strategy. I'm saying make use of these, like, subtle authority cues. You know, if you have social channels, go in and make sure you're verified. If you use search, maybe try some of these authority cues, like the registered trademark symbol, winner of the several Tony Awards. So that's the main conclusion. So thank you very much. And I'd actually like to conclude, because it's Halloween, with another clip from one of my favorite Halloween movies. You may see this at a party, so I want to give you an instant conversation piece. This clip is actually based on the Milgram experiments, and a lot of people don't know that. So here's a clip.
Tell me what you think it is.
Is it a star?
It is a star. Very good. That's great. Okay. All right. Think hard. What is it? Circle. Close. But definitely wrong. Oh, yeah.